I believe the wildly popular show Stranger Things reveals the public's fractured relationship with the father archetype. So let's unpack what this really means and how I came to this conclusion. At the parameters of the story of Stranger Things, there are two characters who appear to be opposites in many ways, but are actually two sides of the same coin. The characters in question are Jim Hopper and Dr. Martin Brenner. So what connects these two characters? Well, they both reflect the father archetype, Jim Hopper being the positive pole and Dr. Martin Brenner being the negative pole. So what do I mean by positive and negative poles of the father archetype? Well, archetypes are essentially universal human experiences that form the psychological blueprint of human behavior. There are a collection of specific behaviors and feelings associated with each archetype. Archetypes therefore have a positive and negative pole, meaning that in the collection of specific behaviors associated with each archetype, there will be some that are constructive and beneficial, and others that are destructive and detrimental. So Hopper exemplifies the positive pole of the father archetype because he is protective and caring. Hopper, as the chief of police, holds authority in the community. However, he balances his authority with empathy and a sense of justice. He keeps order through protection, boundaries, and leadership. Dr. Brenner displays the negative pole of the father archetype because he is authoritarian, manipulative, and uses his power for unethical experiments. His actions reflect a lack of empathy and a disregard for the well-being of the children under his supervision. He keeps order through tyrannical control. The bridge between these two characters that directly activates their roles as aspects of the father archetype is the character of 11. She acts as a daughter to both of them. All the trouble that befalls the town of Hawkins is a result of Dr. Brenner's experiments. They lead to the opening of the Upside Down realm, which brings with it all of the monsters that cause destruction within the town. The Upside Down can be symbolically understood as the archetypal realm of the shadow, which in essence is all of the repressed and denied parts of the psyche. In fact, the main villain from the Upside Down who is behind all of the attacks in Hawkins is revealed to be Vecna. But he wasn't always Vecna. He started as another so-called child of Dr. Brenner and was originally known as Henry. Henry was a sensitive boy who felt trapped and consumed by the rules and regulations of society, which is a continuation of the themes of the father archetype. Dr. Brenner takes him in and tries to control him, restricting and repressing him even more. This fuels an even deeper, more urgent desire within Henry to fight back against him. Henry states clearly, "Where others saw order, I saw a straitjacket." But in Henry's rebellion against this oppressive order, he himself adopts it entirely. He says that he will make his own rules and be a predator, but for good, and ends up manipulating and consuming people's minds, killing them. So Henry ultimately also embodies the negative spectrum of the father archetype, with manipulative and tyrannical control. 11 battles Henry and opens a gateway to the Upside Down, banishing him into it. It's in the Upside Down that Henry turns into Vecna, becoming even more powerful and acting out his tyrannical revenge upon Hawkins. Symbolically, this means that the negative father archetype was repressed into the shadow. This repression caused it to fester and grow in the unconscious until it started to bubble up and wreak havoc on the conscious realm. So what does all this mean? Well, this demonstrates that the negative father archetype is a dominant force in the story. In fact, it's the meta-villain of the entire show. It drives the problems in both Hawkins and the Upside Down. In essence, it causes destruction from both the conscious and unconscious realm. But then there's Hopper. He protects 11 from Dr. Brenner and the forces trying to reclaim her. Not just 11, but the entire town. He confronts both the corrupt laboratory, which Dr. Brenner leads, but also the monsters from the Upside Down. So in essence, the positive father archetype does its best to protect the collective from the negative father archetype. Now, of course, Stranger Things is a complex show and many archetypal themes play out, but there is no question that this is one of the dominant motifs. When a story grips the collective, whatever archetypal themes are present in the story reveal the archetypal themes active in the collective psyche, otherwise it wouldn't be so popular. Therefore, it seems apparent that the public has a fractured relationship to the father archetype. On the one hand, the negative spectrum of the father archetype is a dominant destructive force, demonstrating a very real feeling in the collective towards the father archetype. On the other hand, however, there is a ray of hope with Hopper. While Hopper does a lot himself to protect the town, the reality is he's often hopelessly overpowered by the negative forces he faces. It's actually Eleven who is the town's consistent savior. The hope of Hopper as the positive spectrum of the father archetype largely comes from his ability to protect and assist Eleven, which is an essential part of the father archetype on the positive pole. To protect and provide, not only to keep safe, but to foster and facilitate growth and development of the next generation. It seems this reflects a desire in the collective, a desire for the positive traits of the father archetype to help confront the negative traits, but to also recognize and assist the daughter's potential to overcome this. Every archetypal energy exists within us, sometimes active and sometimes dormant. It seems to me that given the public's love of this show, the negative and positive pole of the father archetype is active within us individually and collectively, trying to find resolution. From the story of Stranger Things, it appears that if the positive pole of the father archetype properly supports and encourages the daughter archetype, they can overcome the tyrannical father together. Psychologically, this means overcoming the tendencies within ourselves and the collective to create and sustain order through authoritarian and tyrannical control. It seems the archetypal positive father and daughter must work together to succeed, perhaps a clue to our individual and collective healing.